Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. OpTic Texas have a mountain to climb tonight if they want to qualify in the winners bracket for the home major. They must beat FaZe in any fashion. They have a good record against FaZe the last couple of seasons, but today is going to be a serious test the way they are presently playing. Many talking about their lack of discipline right now and saying even a player like Clayster might well be a consideration to fix that issue down the line. Very much enjoy to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Thanks to PrizePicks for supporting today's content as well. If you guys want to get involved in the best daily fantasy app you're going to find on the web. More or less kills in these particular series. Let's look maps 1 to 3 actually. We'll have a look at what's going because OpTic versus FaZe is going to be a big series here tonight. Okay, Huke over under 50.5. Shotzzy over under. Okay, I don't know. I feel like Huke is going to have a tough series, so I'm going to go less. But also the great thing about this is I can parlay this with F1 because it's the opening round of the Formula 1 season today in Bahrain, and I can either go points or I could go pit stop time, which I thought was pretty interesting here. So, you know, Verstappen 2.55, Red Bull are quicker than pits, but I'm going to take more than that actually. Surely first pit stop of the season is going to be a bit slower. But yeah, I would be able to enter this if I was based in the US. If you guys want to get involved, hit the link in the description. Use the code BREAKINGPOINT and they'll match your deposit up to the value of $100. Let's dive into things here today. Firstly, on the Parasite side, he actually returned briefly from retirement. I think this is only a temporary thing. Fire, like his teammate, he needed to replace him. So Parasite came back for one Challengers Cup last night. But also Parasite confirmed on Twitter yesterday he is not OpTic's coach. Now, of course, we talked about Shotzzy, said their thing on stream. I didn't really think there was too much in it, but we talked about it anyway. And Parasite admits no, he's not OpTic's coach, but he does say in the replies he would like to be, right? So basically I say, you know, trying to make OpTic Parasite a thing. And I know that many replied to this tweet saying, you know, damn, we want Parasite as coach, bring him in, get the guy in the team. And as Parasite's like, look, it'd be cool if I was OpTic's coach, but seemingly that is not going to be happening. And also just this from Arcitys is how he kind of implies here to Methods that maybe Arcitys would quite like to be. I mean, look, we know Arcitys wanted to be an OpTic. It didn't happen, various buyout reasons. Now it's probably not going to happen. But yeah, just many discussions right now on what OpTic need to change, whether it's a team thing, whether it's a coaching staff thing. And I said it at the time when Rambo was gone. Yes, maybe this helps Dashy and it helps the freedom of the team in the shorter term. But in the long term, without a real coaching staff, without someone to actually instill discipline, are they really going to be able to compete on a consistent basis against the top dogs? I think we're seeing the answer to that start to arrive. And I said on the flank last night that this idea from OpTic has effectively failed. And in fairness, when they've played good teams, they played Subliners, they played Toronto, got 3-0'd both times. Today, again, is going to be a big test against FaZe. As I say, they usually go quite well against FaZe the last couple of seasons. But, well, the pressure is most certainly on this evening, especially because, as we'll dive into here in a second, FaZe also, if they win, can secure themselves the #1 seed, which, let's say they beat OpTic, right? I'm pretty sure FaZe have a great chance of getting #1. If not, they just get #1 outright. And that means they'll play Vegas round 1, which is kind of the ideal spot if you're FaZe, right? If you can, you know, if you can win this series against OpTic, get to play Vegas round 1 at the major, like that's kind of ideal. And of course, they would eliminate OpTic and put them in the losers brackets, so OpTic would be less of a threat for FaZe if they wanted to go back to back, right? So that's the issue. It's not like FaZe have nothing to play for here. They've got a big series on their hands as well to drop OpTic to losers, but also to ensure they get the best possible, in theory, first round matchup on LAN. So, you know, that's why FaZe aren't exactly going to be taking this lightly tonight, right? They're going to want to win just as much as OpTic do, you could argue. Now, let's be honest, the series, the state of the game right now isn't great. Last night we had Control, Fortress, and as Slasher says, right, I know there was a lot of complaints about the Fortress control we had in the series last night, OpTic versus Subliners, but at the end of the day, like, the teams that didn't veto it, right? Like, if you want it gone, then, you know, probably just veto it for the series, right? That's kind of what Slasher's saying here, right? It should be GA'd to, you know, you should be forced to veto it. It should be a GA that every team has to veto it, which probably isn't the best idea in the world. And I know that Hitch was talking about how depressing COD Esports is now, and, you know, how bad it is compared to what it used to be. I don't disagree that the state of the game now is not what it was several years ago, but, you know, I do also think that Hitch might not have been saying this if they'd have won the series last night. I think there's a bit of both going on there. Yes, the game isn't great, but also, you know, OpTic aren't great. I know the Hitches, I know people were joking about this, the Hitches are contemplating the possibility of having to bang the drum for the team and losers round 1, and, you know, that probably is going to be happening based on what we are seeing happen over the last couple of days. Certainly last night was a big one. Now, it also does raise the question here, and I know that people were discussing this. If OpTic were to start in losers at their home major, does it call into question the entire concept of the winners and losers bracket? Now, you know, of course, because OpTic, when the biggest team, they've got the most fans, it's always going to cause these kind of discussions. Dougleave discussed this and says there's a disconnect here because, like, figuring out what's happening with the implications for map count and all these other things is a bit of a mess. And the key point, I think, is what Clayster makes in the reply is that these matches are a random schedule, right? Your strength of schedule is entirely randomized. FaZe at this schedule had a very easy time in general, and yes, they like to go 3-2. They're currently 3-1. They play OpTic today, so maybe it will be a 3-2 for FaZe. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But you know, I guess as Dougleave says, Las Vegas versus Guerrillas should have had 2 times viewership for such a pivotal game. But you know, I have CDL teams in my DMs asking me what it means, which is a great point, right? That like people don't really know what series. I mean, we try and do our best on this channel to explain it, but it's even difficult for the CDL to get across what games are important and why. And as Clay says, this experimental format option we've gone with every year in the CDL has gone way too far. How are 5 matches supposed to matter when strength of schedule is so wildly variable, and tiebreakers for important qualifications, very important qualifications, is determined by matchups against far different teams? We play for the win, not for the 3-0, which is a fair point, right? It's not about 3-0ing the opposition, it's about just getting the victory in whatever fashion that potentially is. And you know, but still, 3-0ing is much better for your map count and then tiebreakers and all this mess, that there's always some sort of 2-3 tiebreaker mess that determines who goes to losers, who goes to winners. And obviously that's very important for how the tournament progresses. So I kind of agree with Clay, but the issue is within 12 teams, like, what is the actual option? I guess you could have an option where you just give the top teams buys again. I prefer this than what we had before, to be honest. If you suck online, I think it's probably fair enough that you only get 1 chance on LAN. But you know, if it was 16 teams, we wouldn't have to worry about this, right, and do the losers bracket thing. But you know, the fact that the strength of schedule is so wildly different and the 10 points for the online matches matter so much, I think is kind of where the root of the problems come from. And also, it's the same thing with Rokkr right now. They suck right now. I mean, they're 0-5 so far this set. Well, their stage is over, basically. Okay, they can go to the major and get some points, but they might get 0 points for the entire split, which puts their champs qualification in jeopardy. And to add insult to injury for playing badly online, you then get a much worse chance at LAN. So, you know, I know it's a bit of a debate. It's difficult to solve, though, with 12 teams, unfortunately. That's just the state of the numbers. So OpTic went down last night. Of course, the Twitter fingers are ready to go, giving all the ideas on what was going wrong, what needs to change, all this type of stuff. Do you give Ghosty more time? Do you not? Is it the ego chatting? All these questions. And of course, there were some members of the community, such as Nameless, who were saying that dropping iLLeY was a bad idea, and you know, bringing Ghosty in was a failed decision, effectively, from day one. I don't think that's necessarily the case, and I don't think that's necessarily proven to be the case so far. The issues for OpTic, though, are clear, right? You can see clear as day the undisciplined nature of their team. They should have won that search and destroy last night for sure, through a 4v2 in absolutely devastating fashion. Don't know what they were thinking, to be honest, but like, they do it again and again, right? They just have this, I think Aix is right, they have a ranked play mentality. They have an 8 mentality. They're just like, oh, let's just fly at these kids, and okay, maybe it works in scrims, maybe it works in ranked play and stuff, and maybe it works in 8, but does it work in an actual matchup online, and certainly on LAN? Like, you know, I'm certainly not sure that it does. And with that defeat yesterday, it was, they confirmed by the league. I think Alex Penn initially made a bit of a mistake here, but like, he eventually corrected it. That let's say OpTic were to lose 3-2 tonight, they will be 8 map wins and then 11 map losses, which will put them at a 42.1% map win ratio, which is worse than Vegas's 42.8% map win ratio, which will give Vegas the winners bracket spot. So Vegas, despite losing yesterday, still have a chance if OpTic were to lose. If OpTic win in any fashion, they go 3-2, and that's going to be fine for them to qualify. But if they're 2-3, they can't get away with 2-3 anymore, based on the 3-0 defeat they had yesterday. So what is the appropriate solution to this whole discipline problem? Because I've said it before with OpTic, and it's the same thing that I kind of see with Boston, but in a slightly different way. That you know, look, the team isn't particularly disciplined. They'll go rogue, they'll, you know, go for the chals, and it's a strategy that can work very well on occasion. They will blow some teams out in hardpoint sometimes. They've already done it. We've already seen what that looks like. But in terms of consistency, it's straight up just not going to be there, right? And I do feel like Rambo got dealt a harsh hand on this whole topic. Now, in fairness, he's getting paid to just effectively do nothing right now. Maybe he'll be back in due course. But, you know, Nabel says OpTic need to be more disciplined. OpTic Clayster IMO. And I said this before, right, about, okay, if I was the OpTic GM, I would, ideally, of course, you get Pred, right? And then you get Pred, you get Shotzzy, you have Dashy, whatever. And then you try and figure out a 3rd player or a 4th player, like in that flex role, or even in the AR role, and put Dashy on the flex. That gives you some discipline and some consistency in that sense. And I know that Enable said Clay's the man to get. Even Nameless agrees in the replies. Now, you know, don't know what you guys think about this as a possibility, but we know that Clay's playing well individually. Now, look, Clay and Dashy together on a team, I don't know about that one so much. But Clay and Shotzzy, they got on well. They won a world championship together. Obviously, the same story with Huke as it currently is. So, you know, I don't know. It's just one to contemplate, right? Because Ghosty is meant to be the IGL and all this stuff, but he hasn't been dropping the crazy numbers that he was dropping in challenges. Been pretty underwhelming, to be perfectly honest, which isn't maybe a massive surprise playing against top tier pro players. But, you know, we haven't seen against the best of the best teams, the likes of Toronto, the likes of Subliners, that he's actually able to get the most out of the players on the team, as, you know, obviously OpTic fans are hoping you will. So now everyone's like, oh, it's time, iLLeY's got to come back, bring iLLeY back in for Ghosty, and like, you know, I don't think that's the issue either. I just think they're kind of, maybe their concept has failed to a certain extent. This is what Ake said, as I mentioned on the flank last night, that he was like, look, this idea of going for the ego chals, playing a super loose style of Call of Duty, maybe just doesn't work against the best of the best teams, especially when they're ready for that, right? If you're playing OpTic, you know what they're going to do. They're very, you know, predictable, right? They're very, you know, frustrating to watch, I think, at times, honestly, and the teams they play against know what to expect from them. So, you know, maybe it's easier to read in a way. Don't know what you guys think in the comments below, but definitely always a big question, right? It's incredible to me how OpTic loses series and the entirety of Twitter is just in complete meltdown for the evening. And, you know, it might well continue after the result tonight, which I think many OpTic fans will expect to be a defeat against FaZe. They're playing very well, Major 2 champions, and also FaZe, let's not forget, are on an 11 at Search and Destroy win streak right now. OpTic will have to break that to win the series, pretty much, okay, unless they win 3-1 by losing the Search, but that seems relatively unlikely. And just before we discuss the series, then thought a pretty cool Brian sat here, winningest players per COD franchise. Of course, Scump is the most on OpTic with 85 series won for OpTic. I believe this is just CDL era. Simp, aBeZy, Cellium 115. Toronto have CleanX actually at 79. I thought was pretty interesting. So some cool numbers across the board here. Boston, of course, LA Guerrillas actually. Remarkable that LA Guerrillas, their most winningest player is Huke with 18 because they changed their roster so much. Of course, he's now on OpTic. But here we go, the matches then for today. So Surge Subliners, like, these are some banger games. Really looking forward to this Sunday. We got the Blow It Up Friday out the way. Yesterday was big as well, and today is another cracker. So Surge versus Subliners. I think New York all across the board are marginally the better team here. I think the Subliners are just slightly better than Surge. I think I'm going to take this in a 3-2 though, and then FaZe OpTic, right? And this is the one that's tough to call. So far OpTic have gone a 3-2 win, a 3-0 loss, a 3-2 win, a 3-0 loss. So does that mean, right, that they get a 3-2 FaZe? I think their record against FaZe the last couple of seasons is something like 7-2 in their favor. They're 1-0 against FaZe so far this season. Of course, they played a big series against them during the Major 2 stretch of qualifiers, and they always seem to turn up against FaZe. But right now, the way they're playing it, the way FaZe's Search and Destroy is, like, I don't really see OpTic, like, making a big step based on what we saw from them yesterday. And I also feel like OpTic might, you know, what's their headspace going to be going into this series? So I expect it to be close. I expect OpTic to come with the fire. But as I said, right, FaZe also have very good reason to try hard and win this series. So I think that's what they're going to do. I actually think maybe a 3-1 here for FaZe. I'll give OpTic a map, and I would like to see a Game 5. It'd be a phenomenal story, but I'm just not sure it's going to happen for OpTic this time. And then Boston versus Thieves, another great series. When this has been played historically online, Thieves have kind of dominated them, but you know, I don't know. So far this season hasn't really been the case. I'm hoping for a Game 5s all across the board here, but I think I've just got to favour Thieves because they just look like the stronger outfit right now. So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.